October 27, 1944. Near the Hirchen Forest, Germany, 12:17 a.m. The radio crackles suddenly. A burst of static fills the operations tent. Then a voice. Weak. Breathing hard. Recon Team Charlie to headquarters. Do you copy? Sergeant William Harris immediately leans toward the receiver. Charlie, this is headquarters. We read you. Report. For several seconds, only static answers. Then the voice returns. Different now. Less controlled. Almost distracted. They're moving again. Silence. The operators exchange confused looks. Moving. Who? Enemy patrols were expected. Nothing unusual about movement. But the voice continues. No, not soldiers. The transmission crackles violently. Static tears through the headphones. Then the radio operator hears something unexpected. Fear. Real fear. Not panic. Not battlefield stress. Something deeper. The kind of fear experienced when reality stops making sense. You can almost feel the tension spreading through the tent. Because experienced reconnaissance teams do not frighten easily. And Team Charlie was experienced. Very experienced. 5 men. Led by Lieutenant James Mercer. Veterans of multiple operations behind enemy lines. Calm under pressure. Reliable. The type of soldiers commanders trusted with difficult missions. Which makes the transmission even more unsettling. Charlie, identify the threat. Static. Then breathing. Heavy breathing. The microphone shifts. Someone whispers something unintelligible in the background. Then Lieutenant Mercer comes on the radio himself. His voice is lower, controlled. But not calm. Headquarters. A pause. Another pause. As if he's deciding whether to say what he's about to say. Then finally Dallas Jointeen. To obstinate. We keep hearing movement around us. The operators wait. That's not unusual, Lieutenant. No. Mercer's answer comes immediately. That's not the problem. Silence follows. Even the operators stop writing notes. Because something about his tone feels wrong. Deeply wrong. The lieutenant continues. We checked 3 times. We circled the area twice. There's nobody there. Static. Then a distant sound reaches the microphone. Branches snapping. Slow. Methodical. Close. Very close. The operators hear it clearly. Everyone inside the tent hears it. And suddenly nobody wants to speak first. Because the sound doesn't belong inside a radio transmission. It feels too immediate. Too close. Mercer's voice returns. Every time we stop. Static. It stops. The tent becomes completely silent. No one interrupts him now. No one wants to. Every time we move, the sound of snapping branches returns. Crunch. 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 Then silence again. As if whatever is making the noise understands exactly when they are listening. You can almost feel the cold October air outside the tent while hearing it. Dark forest. Wet leaves. 0 visibility. 5 men alone behind enemy lines. And something moving nearby. Something they cannot identify. Lieutenant, are you reporting enemy contact? A long pause follows. Long enough to become uncomfortable. Then comes the answer. No. Another pause. We don't know what we're reporting. The operators stare at each other. Because that sentence doesn't belong in military communication. Everything has a category. Enemy. Friendly. Civilian. Unknown. But Mercer sounds as though none of those categories apply. Then suddenly another voice appears in the background. Louder this time. Urgent. Sir. The microphone shifts violently. More static. Then Mercer returns. And now the fear is unmistakable. It moved again. Headquarters immediately responds. What's moving? No answer. Only breathing. Heavy breathing. Then a final sentence. The sentence that would become famous years later. The sentence nobody could fully explain. It's closer than it should be. Static erupts across the receiver. Loud. Violent. The signal distorts completely. Mercer tries to say something else. The operators hear fragments. Words buried beneath interference. Then, nothing. Silence. The transmission dies. Just like that. No goodbye. No distress call. No final coordinates. Only silence. Headquarters immediately attempts contact again. Charlie team, respond. Nothing. Charlie team, acknowledge. Nothing. The operators switch frequencies. Try backups. Repeat calls continuously. Still nothing. The darkness outside the tent suddenly feels much larger. Because somewhere beyond the forest, 5 experienced reconnaissance soldiers have vanished from the radio network completely. And by sunrise, search teams will discover something that makes the final transmission even harder to explain. October 27, 1944. Hirchen Forest, Germany. 5:43 a.m. The fog arrives before sunrise. Thick, cold, unforgiving. It hangs between the trees like a wall, turning the forest into a maze of shadows and silence. Captain Edward Collins studies the map spread across the hood of a jeep. Beside him, 3 search teams prepare to enter the forest. The mission is simple. Find Recon Team Charlie, find Lieutenant Mercer, and determine what happened after the final transmission. Simple orders. But nobody believes this will be simple. Not after the radio message. Not after hearing the fear in Mercer's voice. You can almost feel the tension spreading through the men preparing to enter the woods. Veterans who have faced artillery barrages, machine gun nests, tank assaults. Yet somehow, a strange radio transmission unsettles them more than any battlefield report. At precisely 6 a.m., the search begins. 3 squads move carefully into the forest. Compasses checked. Weapons loaded. Radios tested. The morning fog absorbs them almost immediately. Within minutes, headquarters can no longer see them. Only hear them. Occasional radio updates crackle through static. Search Team 1 moving north. Search Team 2 crossing creek bed. No contact yet. The forest remains silent. Too silent. Even the birds seem absent. Private Thomas Reed notices it first. No birds. The observation sounds insignificant. But everyone notices it once he says it aloud. The forest should be alive with sound. Instead, nothing. Only boots moving through wet leaves. The search teams continue deeper, following the last coordinates transmitted by Mercer. Around 8:17 a.m., Search Team 2 discovers the first clue. A footprint. Fresh. American military boot. Heading west. Another appears nearby. Then another. The tracks belong to Team Charlie. At first, the discovery feels encouraging. Evidence. Direction. Progress. But then Sergeant Daniel Brooks notices something strange. The footprints stop. Not gradually. Not because the ground changes. Simply stop. One moment tracks exist. The next moment, nothing. The men stand silently staring at the forest floor, trying to understand. The ground ahead remains soft enough to preserve footprints. Yet there are none. As if the patrol vanished between one step and the next. Brooks kneels closer, examines the soil. No signs of struggle. No drag marks. No blood. Nothing. The discovery is radioed back immediately. Headquarters assumes navigational error. There must be another trail. A missed direction. A simple explanation. But the forest offers none. Search Team 2 spends nearly an hour searching the surrounding area. Still nothing. Then, shortly before noon, Search Team 1 reports another discovery. Mercer's radio antenna. Broken. Bent badly. Half buried beneath leaves. The item is identified immediately. Every recon operator marks equipment carefully. There is no doubt it belonged to Charlie Team. Yet again, the discovery creates more questions than answers, because the antenna appears intentionally removed, not shattered by combat, not destroyed by artillery. Removed. Placed. Left behind. You can almost feel the growing unease spreading through the search operation now. The clues make no sense. Footprints ending abruptly. Equipment appearing without explanation. And still no sign of 5 missing soldiers. Then comes the most disturbing discovery of all. At 1:24 p.m., Search Team 3 reaches the final location of Mercer's transmission. A small clearing hidden deep within the forest. The exact coordinates match perfectly. The team moves cautiously into the area. Weapons ready. Eyes scanning constantly. Then they stop. Every man stops. Because the clearing contains evidence. But not the evidence anyone expected. 5 backpacks. Neatly arranged in a row. Side by side. Facing east. As though someone deliberately placed them there. Every pack belongs to Team Charlie. Identification confirms it immediately. Inside the bags. Maps. Personal belongings. Extra ammunition. All untouched. Nothing stolen. Nothing damaged. The rifles, however, are gone. So are the men. The clearing feels wrong. Not abandoned. Organized. Intentional. The search teams secure the area immediately. Photographs are taken. Reports written. Measurements recorded. But nobody can answer the obvious question. Why would experienced reconnaissance soldiers abandon everything except their weapons? And where did they go afterward? Then one soldier notices something hidden beneath Mercer's backpack. A small field notebook. Water damaged. Blood-stained. Most pages are unreadable, except for the final entry. A single sentence scribbled hastily before disappearing into illegible marks. The sentence reads, "We can hear it moving again." Nothing more. No explanation. No description. No answer. Only one final clue from men who were no longer there. And as darkness begins falling over the Hurtgen forest once again, the search teams start realizing they may not be investigating a rescue mission anymore. They may be investigating a mystery. A mystery that only becomes stranger with every new discovery. October 28, 1944. Hurtgen Forest Headquarters. 7:51 p.m. Rain taps softly against the canvas roof of the command tent. A single lantern flickers above the table. Its weak yellow light illuminates Lieutenant James Mercer's field notebook. The notebook sits in the center of the table like evidence from a crime scene. Captain Edward Collins stares at the final page. Again. And again. And again. We can hear it moving again. The words refuse to make sense. Military reports are supposed to be clear, specific. Enemy movement. Grid coordinates. Unit strength. Facts. Not sentences like this. Not vague observations scribbled by an experienced reconnaissance officer. Especially not Mercer. Mercer was known for precision. The type of officer who recorded everything carefully. Every route. Every enemy position. Every detail. Yet his final entry sounds almost frightened. As if he were trying to describe something he couldn't understand himself. You can almost feel the frustration building inside headquarters. Because every clue raises new questions. No answers. Only questions. Outside, darkness settles over the forest again. The same darkness Team Charlie entered the previous night. The same darkness from which they never returned. Then suddenly du mine estristres and esmelis, verscher les de mine. Something true. A soldier enters the tent. Mud covers his boots. Rain drips from his jacket. His expression immediately catches Colin's attention, because he looks unsettled, deeply unsettled. Sir, the soldier hesitates. We found someone. Collins looks up immediately. A survivor? The soldier shakes his head. No, sir. A witness. 20 minutes later, the witness sits inside the tent. An elderly German woodcutter named Karl Weiss. Thin. Weathered. The kind of man who spent his life inside forests. Weiss removes his hat nervously as military intelligence officers begin questioning him. At first, his story seems ordinary. He heard gunfire occasionally. Saw patrols. Avoided both armies whenever possible. Nothing unusual. Then Collins asks about the previous night. Everything changes. Weiss becomes quiet. Too quiet. His eyes drift toward the tent entrance. Toward the darkness outside. Finally, he speaks. I heard them. Who? The missing soldiers. Every person inside the tent stops writing. Collins leans forward slightly. When? After midnight. The answer comes immediately. The exact time of Mercer's final transmission. Weiss explains carefully. He was sheltering inside a hunting cabin deep in the woods. The fog was thick, visibility almost non-existent. Then he heard voices. American voices. 5 men moving through the forest. The description matches Team Charlie perfectly. At first, nothing seemed unusual. Just another patrol. Then Weiss heard something else. Something behind them. Following them. The room becomes completely silent. Collins exchanges a glance with another officer. What was following them? Weiss hesitates. Long enough for everyone to notice. Then, finally, Dears bestrittenly Seffert. I don't know. The answer sounds honest. Too honest. The old woodcutter looks embarrassed by it, as if he knows how strange it sounds. But he continues anyway. It sounded heavy. Heavy? Like footsteps. The officers nod. Footsteps make sense. Enemy patrols. German soldiers. Normal explanations. But Weiss shakes his head immediately. No. Another pause. Not like human footsteps. The tent grows quieter. Because nobody likes where this conversation is going. Not in wartime. Not among professionals. The woodcutter notices their skepticism. I never saw anything. His voice becomes defensive now. I'm only telling you what I heard. The officers allow him to continue. Weiss describes hearing the Americans stop several times. Every time they stopped. The other sounds stopped too. Every time they moved. It moved. Always maintaining distance. Always staying hidden. The description immediately reminds Collins of Mercer's radio transmission. Exactly the same pattern. Move. Stop. Move. Stop. The coincidence is impossible to ignore. Then Weiss mentions something that changes the atmosphere entirely. The forest became quiet. No one understands at first. What do you mean? The animals. Weiss answers softly. They stopped. No birds. No insects. No forest sounds at all. Just footsteps. The officers exchange uncomfortable looks. Because Search Team 1 reported exactly the same thing that morning. The silence. No birds. No natural sounds. Nothing. Suddenly, what sounded like superstition begins feeling less dismissible, not because it's supernatural, because multiple people reported the same strange details independently. The same silence. The same following sounds. The same feeling of being watched. Then Weiss reaches into his coat pocket. Slowly, carefully, he places something onto the table. A brass button. Military issue. American. Collins picks it up immediately. The button belonged to Team Charlie. No doubt about it. Where did you find this? Weiss looks toward the dark forest outside the tent. His answer comes quietly, where the voices stopped. The lantern flickers. Nobody speaks. Because for the first time since Team Charlie disappeared, there is finally a location. A specific location. A place where something happened. And at dawn, the new search team will head there. What they discover waiting in that section of forest will make the mystery far stranger than anyone imagined. October 29th, 1944. Hürtgen Forest, Germany. 6:18 a.m. The fog is back, thicker than before. It hangs low between the trees, turning the forest into a world of pale shadows and silence. Captain Edward Collins stands at the front of the new search team. 8 men. All veterans. All armed. And all thinking about the same thing. The radio message. The notebook. The witness. The footsteps. Nobody says it aloud. But everyone feels it. Something happened to Team Charlie in this forest. And whatever happened, it wasn't normal. The men move carefully through the trees following the directions provided by Carl Weiss. The old woodcutter had described the location precisely. A narrow valley, a dead oak tree, a dry creek bed, 3 landmarks. Simple enough. Yet even with a map, finding them feels difficult. The forest seems different here, heavier. You can almost feel it. The strange sensation that the woods themselves are watching. At 8:42 a.m., they find the dead oak, exactly where Weiss described. The massive tree rises from the fog like a skeleton. Its branches stretch across the grey sky like broken fingers. Nobody likes the sight of it. Not because it's frightening. Because it confirms the witness was telling the truth. The search continues. A few hundred yards later they locate the creek bed. Dry. Silent. And beside it, they find the first sign. A rifle cartridge. American. Recently fired. Then another. And another. Soon dozens appear scattered across the ground. Evidence of a firefight. Finally, a logical explanation. Enemy contact. Combat. The officers immediately begin examining the area. Positions. Angles. Lines of fire. But within minutes something becomes obvious. The evidence doesn't fit. The spent cartridges all belong to Team Charlie's rifles. There are no German shell casings. None. Not a single one. The men exchange confused looks. How can there be a firefight with only one side firing? The discovery makes no sense. Then Private Michael Ross notices something nearby. Fresh marks on a tree trunk. He calls the others over. At first glance, they resemble bullet impacts. But closer inspection reveals something strange. The marks are too high. Far too high. Nearly 12 feet above the ground. No one understands how they got there. The bullets entered at impossible angles. Collins stares upward, trying to imagine the scenario. Nothing fits. Nothing explains it. Then suddenly, a shout echoes through the fog. Everyone spins immediately, weapons raised. The voice came from farther ahead, Private Ross again. But this time he sounds shocked. Not alarmed. Shocked. The search team rushes forward, moving quickly now. The fog parts slightly, and then they see it. A clearing. Small. Circular. Almost perfectly circular. The ground inside looks disturbed. Flattened. As though dozens of men had stood there recently. But that's not what catches their attention. It's the center of the clearing. Because lying there, partially buried beneath leaves, is Team Charlie's radio. The missing radio. The same radio that transmitted the final message. The same radio that went silent forever. The men approach cautiously. Collins kneels beside it. The equipment is damaged. Badly damaged. But not destroyed. Almost as if someone placed it there deliberately, waiting to be found. The captain carefully examines the set, then notices something attached beneath the receiver. A small notebook page, torn hastily from another journal, folded several times. Protected from the rain, Collins unfolds it slowly. The search team gathers around. The handwriting belongs to Lieutenant Mercer. Everyone recognizes it immediately. The note contains only 2 lines. 2 lines written quickly, desperately. The first line reads, "We followed the sound." Silence settles over the clearing. Nobody speaks. Then Collins reads the second line, and suddenly every man around him feels cold. That was our mistake. The fog drifts silently between the trees. The clearing feels different now. Not like a battlefield, like a warning. Because somewhere between the final radio transmission and this note, Team Charlie realized something. Something important enough to write down. Something terrifying enough to call a mistake. But what sound were they following? And where did it lead them? The answer may exist somewhere deeper inside the forest. Because hidden beneath the damaged radio, the search team discovers a map. And on that map, Mercer circled a location that appears nowhere in official military records. A location marked with only 3 words. It came here, October 29th, 1944. Hirtgen Forest, 11:00 a.m. The map lies open across a fallen tree. Nobody speaks. The fog has begun lifting slightly, but the forest still feels unnaturally quiet. Captain Edward Collins studies the circle drawn by Lieutenant Mercer. The pencil mark is rough, hurried, not the work of a man calmly recording intelligence, the work of a man trying to leave behind a warning. And beside the circle are the 3 words. It came here. No coordinates. No explanation. Just those 3 words. You can almost feel the frustration building among the search team. Because every clue creates another mystery. The radio. The note. The missing men. Everything points towards something. Yet nothing explains what that something is. Collins compares Mercer's map against military charts. The location exists. A narrow depression several miles deeper into the forest. Oddly enough, no patrol routes pass through it. No roads. No villages. No strategic importance. Nothing. The place should be irrelevant. Yet Mercer marked it. Which means it wasn't irrelevant to him. The search team prepares immediately. Within 30 minutes, they begin moving toward the location. The terrain becomes rougher as they advance. Steeper slopes. Thicker trees. Deeper shadows. Even in daylight, visibility remains poor. At times the forest feels almost underground. Branches overhead block much of the sky. The deeper they travel, the less they hear. No birds. No insects. Nothing. The silence returns. The same silence reported by Mercer. The same silence reported by Carl Weiss. And now every man notices it. Private Ross finally says what everyone is thinking. I don't like this place. Nobody laughs. Because nobody likes it either. Hours later, they finally arrive. The depression appears suddenly between the trees, a shallow basin surrounded by dense forest. Circular. Almost perfectly circular. The shape immediately feels unnatural. Not man-made. But strange. The ground inside looks disturbed. Old tracks cover the mud. Hundreds of footprints. Some American. Some German. Many impossible to identify. Collins kneels beside one set. The prints are recent. Team Charlie definitely came here. That much is obvious. Then another discovery appears. A helmet. American. Lieutenant Mercer's. The identification number confirms it. The search team gathers around quietly, because this is the closest they've come to the missing officer. The helmet contains damage, not from bullets, not from shrapnel. A long crack runs across the side, as though tremendous force struck it. Yet there is no blood, no body, no explanation. Then Private Ross notices something beyond the depression, a narrow trail leading deeper into the trees. At first glance it seems ordinary. Then the men realize something. The trail wasn't made by animals, or vehicles, or soldiers. It's too wide, far too wide. The marks continue through the undergrowth for hundreds of yards. Flattened vegetation, broken branches. As though something enormous passed through recently. Nobody says the thought aloud, because everyone immediately knows how ridiculous it sounds. Yet the evidence remains. Visible. Real. The trail eventually ends near an abandoned German bunker hidden beneath the hillside. The structure appears deserted. Its concrete walls are cracked from years of combat. The entrance partially collapsed. Inside, darkness swallows everything. The search team enters cautiously. Flashlights sweep across damp walls. Old equipment litters the floor. Dust. Rust. Nothing unusual. Then one soldier finds something in a corner. A radio log. German. Weather damaged but readable. Military intelligence later translates the entries. And what they discover changes the entire investigation. Because weeks before Team Charlie disappeared, German patrols reported hearing strange movement in exactly the same area. Movement they couldn't identify. One entry reads, "Night patrol refuses to return to Sector 12. Another. Unexplained sounds continue. Then the final entry. The final entry that leaves intelligence officers staring silently at the page. American patrol missing. Avoid area after dark. The report is dated 2 weeks before Mercer vanished. 2 weeks. Which means Team Charlie wasn't the first unit affected. And suddenly the mystery becomes larger than 5 missing soldiers. Much larger. Because both sides of the war encountered something inside that forest. Both sides documented it. Both sides avoided it. And neither side ever explained it. Years later, historians would debate the case endlessly. Enemy ambush. Psychological stress. Fog-induced confusion. A classified operation. Every theory solved part of the puzzle. None solved all of it. The fate of Team Charlie remained officially unresolved. No bodies were ever recovered. No final explanation was ever accepted. Only a radio transmission, a notebook, a map, and a warning. We followed the sound. That was our mistake. Somewhere in the Hurtgen forest, the truth disappeared with them. And perhaps that is why the final message still fascinates people decades later. Because wars usually leave answers. But occasionally, they leave mysteries. And mysteries survive longer than battles ever do.